Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time. This is Masechet Bava Metzia. This is our third class. And today we are going to be reviewing Daf 15 through 21. And we're continuing with our discussion of people selling land that was stolen and who has the rights to it. So Daf 15 tells us that, let's say Reuven sold land to Shimon, but the land was actually, meaning Reuven, who sold the land to Shimon, actually stole the land from Levi. Now Levi comes and he takes back the land from Shimon because it's his land. Now Shimon wants to be reimbursed for the land, so he goes back to Reuven. So we say that it's a verbal obligation that Reuven needs to reimburse Shimon for the amount that he paid. And then we say, no, maybe the case is that Reuven was already in court and needed to pay Levi back because he stole his land. And then he sold it after he was already in court. And therefore, Shimon can take basically any land that Reuven owns in order to reimburse for the sale of the original land. So we say that the buyer gets reimbursed for the land, but also for any improvement that he invested in the land, that's called shevach, and for all the produce that was also taken when the field was taken. Now, if he's paying back with land, so then he can get all of this back because it won't look like interest. But if he's paying with money, we say that it looks like interest, and therefore he cannot pay all of that back. He can only pay back the value of the land. Let's say you sell a piece of land and the buyer improves the land, and then the creditor comes and takes it, right? Because you, instead of Reuven stealing the land from Levi, now it's that he owes money to Levi, and the land is on lien, right? Has a lien on the property. So then, when the creditor comes and takes it, so the buyer gets reimbursed for the land and for the shevach and for the improvement that was done to the land, or not. That's the machloket here in the Gemara. And then the question is, again, are there two separate cases? A creditor who's coming to take land, or the stolen, right, the original owner, and Reuven was the one who stole the land, and now he's taking it back. Okay, now the Gemara asks, can the borrower give money to prevent the lender from taking the land? Right, so again, there's a lien on the property. Reuven owes Levi money. Levi comes and he wants to take the land. The question is, can Reuven say, no, don't take the land. Here, I'll give you the $1,000 that I owe you. And then the question is, was this land, what type of lien was there on the land? If it was what's called an apoteki, that means that he can only take reimbursement from this land, and therefore he cannot offer money. Rather, he will take the land from even Shimon if it was sold to Shimon. Now, let's say Shimon knew that the land was stolen. Can he get reimbursed for the land that he, right, the money that he bought the land with? So maybe he can get reimbursed for the land, but not for any improvement. Meaning, if you knew that this was stolen land, whatever money you put into it, that's your problem. Or no, you don't even get reimbursed at all for the land because you knew that it was stolen. If you knew it was stolen, why did you buy it in the first place? So the Gemara gives an example. Maybe Shimon, again, remember, Reuven is the thief, and he steals land from Levi, and he gives it, and he sells it to Shimon. So now we say Shimon knows that it's stolen. What's going on here? So the Gemara says maybe Shimon wants to give money to Reuven. Therefore, right, he wants to give him money, and he doesn't want to take it from him. So therefore, he buys this land. And this is a way to give Reuven money, right? Therefore, Reuven doesn't need to pay Shimon back because he knew that it was stolen in the first place. So when he gave him the money, he gave him the money. But let's say a person gave money to. So then the Gemara gives other examples where a person wants to give money to a person, and we realize that he is making up, ways to give them money, even though, right, he could just give it to them, but they want to take it. So he comes up with ways to give the person money. Okay. Now Shimon, again, Shimon, let's say he knows that the land that he bought was stolen. He can eat from this land because he knows that Levi is going to come and take the land eventually. So in the meantime, he's going to eat from the produce of the land. Okay, let's say Reuven, again, he's our thief. After he stole the land from Levi, and after he sold it to Shimon, he then goes to Levi and he pays for the land. And the Gemara says, why is he doing this? Because he wants to make sure that Shimon can keep the land. The only way Shimon can keep the land is if Reuven pays Levi back. So now the question is, can he now go to Shimon? Again, Reuven paid Levi for the field. Now, can he go to Shimon and take the land back? Meaning, can Reuven now take the land back and say, oh, I paid for the field, so now it's mine, so now give it back to me. And we continue. Let's say Shimon dies and no one is going to know that Reuven was the thief. Let's say Reuven dies, right? So no one's going to know that Reuven was the one who originally stole the land. And therefore, they could go take the land from Shimon, or the Gemara says, no, maybe not. We're now on top 16, and we continue. Let's say Reuven gave the field to Shimon as a gift. Or let's say Reuven gave the field as an inheritance to somebody else or to his children, right? It shows that he doesn't want Shimon to have the field, right? If he gives it to somebody else. Let's say Levi, again, Levi was the original owner. These are all, right? We're keeping all the characters the same, right? So let's say Levi owed money to Reuven. So then when Reuven goes to Levi to pay back for the land that he stole, right, he says, you know what? Instead of paying me back the money that you owe me, you can, like, instead of you paying me back, let me keep the land, right? I stole the land from you and you owe me money, so let's call it even. So again, this shows that he wants Shimon to keep it. And therefore, he can't go now afterwards to Shimon and say, give me back the land. If Levi gives Reuven the land as a gift, after he stole it, remember, Reuven steals the land from Levi, sells it to Shimon. Now, Levi says, you know what? I've always loved you, so you know what? You can just keep the land. I don't know why he would say that, but let's pretend. Right? So then, now, again, we're not sure. Can now Reuven go and get the land from Shimon or not? Now, the Gemara asks a question on the case that we've been talking about for a daf and a half, right? How could it be that Shimon could buy stolen land from Reuven? Meaning, Reuven stole the land. He doesn't have the right to sell it to Shimon. So how could we call Shimon the owner of this land or the buyer? right? How could Reuven have sold it in the first place? So, right, is there a document that says, I, Reuven, am selling this land to Shimon? Reuven doesn't own it. How could he sell it to Shimon? So we say that Shimon trusted Reuven, that in the end, everything was going to be okay. Meaning, right now, maybe this is stolen property, but I'm assuming, right, Shimon says, I'm assuming Reuven is going to actually pay for the land from Levi, and therefore Shimon is going to own the land. Or no, right? Reuben has no ability to sell land to Shimon if he doesn't own it, right? So that's our question on this case from the beginning, right? If you say, and now we have a new case. Let's say a person says, whatever enters my traps are sold to you. Meaning, here's the question: Reuven stole land and sold it to Shimon. Now, if we assume a Reuven is going to buy it legally from Levi, then it'll all be okay. But the question is, at the time of the sale, it didn't belong to Reuven, so how could he sell it? So now the Gemara is trying to come up with cases where a person sells or shows that they have control over something that they don't have control over yet. And the question is, does that work or not? So again, right, someone says, I put out all these traps in the forest, so anything that I get to, anything that goes into the traps, I'm selling to you. There's nothing in the traps right now. How could I sell it to you if nothing went into the traps yet? Right? So we say that's invalid. Right? Or if I say anything that I inherit, you can have. What does that mean? You don't own it yet. So how could I sell it to you? But if you say anything that goes into my traps today, right? Lagdir. What's the word? I categorize exactly what I'm trying to say. I give it boundaries. So then if I say, if it's for, I was waiting for Zohar. Thank you. Zohar usually helps me with my language skills. Thank you. If you quantify what the boundaries are of my statement. So if I say anything that goes into my traps today is sold to you, so then it's valid because I'm quantifying my statement. And maybe we say, look, that person really needs money, so whenever it gets in, okay, fine, you can buy it. So again, right, we say, when I buy a field from Levi, it's sold to you. What do you mean? You didn't buy it yet. How can you sell something that you don't own? And again, we've seen this machloket before. In Hebrew, the term is Adam makne davar shelo ba leolam, right? Can a person acquire or sell something that doesn't exist yet? Right? In Israel, we do this all the time, right? We call it buying, right? You buy property on paper, right? The property doesn't exist yet, right? The apartment doesn't exist yet, or the house doesn't exist yet, but you buy it on paper. So that's what the Gemara is asking, right? Can I sell something that I don't own yet? Again, according to Rabbi Meir, the answer is yes, right? I can sell you things that don't exist yet. Okay. And now we're going to move on to remember, we started our parak with talking about finding things. How do we acquire them? What do we do with them? So here, what if you find a document on the floor? So if it's what's called a shtar hakna'ah, this is a legal document that says that you own this property, so you can return it to the lender because as soon as he signed the document, he already acquired this property, even though it was based on a loan. So now the Gemara tells us that any document with a stamp or an authorization from the court, from the Beit Din, you can return it to the lender. Again, remember, we're talking about an IOU that says, right, I, Reuven, owe you, Shimon, $100, and if I don't pay it, you can come and get this property. Now, as we said last time, if this IOU is in the hands of the lender, it means that he can now go and collect the money. If it's in the hands of the borrower, it means I paid for it already and you cannot come and collect it. So we're going to be very careful to figure out who gets this document. Now, also don't forget, we're finding the document on the floor. Doesn't mean you tried to put it in the garbage and therefore it's not a valid document. Or do we say, no, it fell out of your bag and it's a very important document? So that's going to be our conversation for the rest of tonight, is figuring out what do we do with these documents. Maybe it has to be certain particular documents, like a foreclosure or a seizure type of document. Those can be returned to the lender, but a regular IOU, maybe we're concerned, maybe it was paid already. So if you give it back to the lender, he's going to try to collect it again. Maybe you made a mistake and you threw it in the garbage and it's not valid at all. Again, right, you found an IOU in the marketplace. Even if it has a stamp from the Beit Din, from the court, you still don't return it. Why? Because again, as we said, we're concerned that maybe you paid it already and then it fell on the floor or you threw it in the garbage and now you're going to let him, get money again. So the Gemara says, now again, we have two parties. Well, I guess three, the person who found it, the borrower and the lender. So now, if the borrower is proven to be not a very honest person, right, then you return it to the lender because we don't believe the borrower to say, of course, the borrower is going to say, I paid it back already. But if we know that this person is not trustworthy, meaning that they lie, so we don't listen to their claim and we give it back to the lender. Again, this is only for certain types of documents, not regular IOUs. If the court tells the borrower to pay back the money and he says that he did, so then we believe him, right? A regular case, we believe the borrower. Daf 17 tells us this is only if it was an official ruling, right? If they say you should pay it back, or you should pay it back, which is more of like a suggestion. So then we don't believe him because it's not an official ruling. Or no, we believe him in both cases. If witnesses come and say that he's lying, so now we don't really say that he's a liar. We actually saw this previously because again, maybe he's just pushing off, right? He knows he owes the person $100 and he doesn't have it. So he says, I paid it back, but really he's just stalling so he can find the money. But for this particular loan, we do say that he is not trustworthy and therefore we do not believe him. If a person is liable or needs to take an oath and he says that he already did, and then witnesses come and say that he didn't, again, we see him as a liar for this particular case. Excuse me. And he has to go back to court and he has to take the oath again. If the court didn't require him to take an oath, so then we don't see him as lying because he's just procrastinating. He just doesn't want to take the oath. Again, as we said, taking an oath is a very serious thing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekol niyeh bidbaro. Everyone remember to drink. Tomorrow's a fast day. Okay, if you're so inclined to fast. Okay. Next, let's say you found a loan document, again, with an authorization from the court, and it has a date, and the date is today, meaning Reuven owes Shimon money today, or he borrowed it and he owes it today. So now he borrowed it today. You give it back to the lender, right? Because we're not concerned that you already paid it back if you just received the loan today. Or the Gemara says maybe we should be concerned. Maybe it was a 1 hour loan, and therefore you maybe you shouldn't return it. Okay, anything that a court obligates, it's as if it was written in a document, even if it wasn't written in the document. And this is like a ktuva. So now we're going to talk about, right, let's say you find the ktuva, can you say it was paid already or not? Right, so here the Gemara talks about who gets a ktuva. Does a woman who's a widow from just an engagement and not from a marriage, she does get her ktuva money. And she can get not only the ktuva money, but also the tosefet, the added part of the ktuva is also, she also gets. Daf 18 tells us that, again, if they were only engaged, so then, right, this goes back to when we discussed what is the relationship like. If one of the engaged couples dies, so then the other one does not become an onen, meaning a mourner for that person, and he doesn't inherit her, right? If she dies, he doesn't inherit her because they were never married. And if he dies, she does get her ktuva money. Okay, next Mishnah on Daf 18. If you find a get, right, a divorce document, or a get shichrur, an emancipation document for a slave, you find this again on the floor, or a will, or a gift, or a receipt, you don't return it to the people because, again, maybe they threw it out, maybe they never used it, and therefore you don't return it. So now the Gemara says, okay, hold on. If the person says, no, I dropped that, give it to my wife, so then you listen to him and you give it to the wife, or you give it to the slave. The Breita says you can't use this found document if it's been there for a long time. Again, it has a date, so you can see how long it's been lost. Because again, maybe it was someone else's. If you remember in Masechet Gitin, we talked about the possibility maybe there was right, a caravan went through the town and they dropped a document of another couple who the husband's name is Yosef and the wife's name is Sarah, and now you found this get and you don't know really whose it is, so you do not return it. Again, here, if there are no caravans that pass through the town, it's probably the same get, and you can return it. Okay. When the husband agrees, you can give it to the wife, even if it was a long time ago. Again, it depends if a lot of people have passed by this area or not. If the witnesses say that they only signed one get, right, and it was Yosef who was married to Sarah in the city, so then you can return it, right? If they didn't sign two gets with the same people's name on it, so then you cannot. Daf 19 tells us that if a Talmid Chacham, if a learned sage or learned person loses something and you find it, so they can say that they recognize it and give like a general sign, and then you return it to him. We're going to discuss this at the end of today's class when we start the next perek. So we'll talk more about that when we get there. Let's go back to finding a get, right? So you find the get in the marketplace. We said you can return it to the wife if the husband agrees, and if not, you don't return it to anybody. And we're not concerned that maybe he sold her property between the time that the get was written and when it was given to her, right? We say that the husband does not have any rights to her property from the date that's written on the get. Remember, he can write the get on one day and only give it later on. Of course, nowadays, that is not the case. Nowadays, they actually, in court, write the get, and it's given to the woman on the same day, within the same hour, whatever, as long as it takes. It's given to her. There's no time in between. But in those days, there could have been time in between, and therefore we do return it, and we're not concerned about what happened between the time it was written and the time that it was given. Now, we say, why is it so important to be able to return the get? We need her to be able to have her get so she can prove that she's divorced, so that she can remarry. But if, okay, so that's for a get. But if you find an IOU, that doesn't have to be returned, right? Maybe we'll tell you, prove to us when this was written, and then we'll return it. But for the get, she needs it because she wants to get remarried. Okay, let's say you found a get shichrur, right? A emancipation document for a slave. If the master agrees, you can return it to the slave. If not, you don't return it to anybody. So when the witnesses sign the document, he goes free, right? Meaning, even if it wasn't given to him yet, as soon as they sign the document, he goes free. Therefore, any property that the slave bought after that date, right? Again, the slave is freed on Sunday, Aleph Adar. If on Monday, Bet Adar, the slave goes and buys property, so then he can keep the property, right? The master can't take the property and say, excuse me, I didn't give you this document till Wednesday, so any property that you bought is mine. It doesn't work like that. And therefore, again, you can return this document to the slave. Okay, let's say you found a will. Daitiki is a will or a gift document. And this document says, I'm going to leave you my property, and it's going to be yours from now when I die. I think we mentioned this also previously. According to Jewish law, there's a certain way inheritance works. And as soon as a person dies, that law goes into effect, whether or not the person wanted it. However, if the person wanted to allocate his estate in a different way, you can write what we call either a halachic will or a living will. And this basically says, right, again, as a living person, you have the ability to give a gift to whoever you want. So basically what you do is you write a gift document that I'm giving you a gift of, right, my house, but you don't get it till the person dies. So that's called a gift document. Now, let's say you found this document on the floor. We do not return it. Now, the Gemara is going to talk about two types of people that could have written this document. A healthy person, or a person, in Hebrew, the term is shchiv merah, which means a person who is on their deathbed. We have special laws for a shchiv merah. Because they are about to die, we basically let them say certain things, and we take it as if it was a legal document. If you're a healthy person, you need to go through, you have to jump through the legal hoops. But if not, then you don't have to. So we say, if the person was healthy, you do not return the document. But if the person was on their deathbed, so then you can return the document to the shchiv merah, to the person who wrote the document. Now, let's say a person wrote two of these documents. The later one is the one that's valid, right? Because again, if I want to give you a gift and then I say, never mind, I didn't never like that person, let me give it to somebody else, right? So I have the ability to do that. Again, depending on if you gave it or not. Obviously, if you gave the gift already and they have it, you can't take it back. But if it's like you're going to get it in the future, I can decide till that future happens, I can decide who I'm going to give it to. And therefore, the latest document is the valid one. If a person is healthy, so then you don't return it to anyone because, again, they might be lying. They might have said, oh, I got into a fight, so really I meant to give it to the other person. So we do not return the document. Or maybe both of these cases are talking about the ill person, but if he says to return it to so-and-so, so then you do. But let's say the person died in the meantime, the son, let's say the son says, oh, return this to so-and-so, you do not listen to the son, right? Maybe the father on the deathbed wrote this document and then said, nah, you know what, throw it in the garbage. Let's write another document. So we can't ask him, therefore we don't return the document. We can always tell a person or the son, you can write a new document. Again, if the son owns the property, he can give it to whoever he wants. And again, the other person, the original owner, can also give it to whoever they want. Okay, let's say you find a receipt to a ktuva payment. Again, the woman has a ktuva. When the husband pays the ktuva money, she writes a receipt and gives it to him. So the receipt is supposed to be with the husband, and then the ktuva either stays with the wife or gets ripped up. We'll see in a minute. So if you find this receipt of the ktuva payment on the floor, if the wife agrees, you can return it to the husband. If the wife doesn't agree, you don't return it to anyone because, again, this could be a way that the husband can be forging a document and he could say, oh, look, I paid her already. I don't have to pay her more. Okay, Daf 20 tells us if the wife admits, so again, we believe her because why would she lie, right? She's saying that he doesn't owe me money. Either he paid her to her or she's forgiving him the loan, meaning she's saying you don't have to pay me. Either way, she has the right to do that. So we believe her. Or maybe the case is that she still has the ktuva and it proves that she didn't sell it to anybody. And therefore, the question is, right, again, are we going to suspect that maybe there's more than one ktuva and maybe she sold the other one? That is the question. Okay, next Mishnah. You found a letter of evaluation, right? So like when you get something appraised, right? So an appraisal document or a document for support, right? I guess like alimony or child support, right? You find one of these documents or you found a document of chalitza or mi'un, right? These are documents where a woman, right, again, chalitza, she doesn't want to marry or he doesn't want to marry his sister-in-law when the brother dies, or any other document that is an official document from the Beit Din, from the court. So all of these documents can be returned. Okay. If you find 3 of these documents tied together or rolled up together or in a container, so then you can return them. Okay, let's say you found 3 documents with the same name as the borrower, meaning Reuven borrowed from Shimon, Reuven borrowed from Levi, Reuven borrowed from Yehuda. So then you return all of the money to Reuven, right? Because Reuven is the one who's going to borrow all the money. So it must be that these documents are Reuven's. If you find 3 documents that say Reuven lent money to Shimon, Reuven lent money to Levi, right? So all of these documents belong to Reuven, the lender. So now you return it to the lender, right? Again, we're trying to figure out whose documents are these. And as we said before, there's power to these documents. If you found a document of a loan of 2 other people, right? So again, Levi was going through his garage and he found a box with an IOU that says, what did I say, Levi? So it says Reuven owes Shimon money, meaning Levi's a third party and he just finds the IOU. He's not involved in the loan. So now Levi doesn't remember if, right, was the loan paid back and they told him to hold it? Was it not paid back and that's why he's holding it? So we don't return it to anybody because we don't know if it was paid or not. Let's say you found a receipt, right? And you're the lender, right? So again, you're the one who gets the receipt because you're the one who got the money. So, sorry. Again, the receipt is supposed to go to the borrower, right? He pays and the lender gives the receipt. We find the receipt with the lender. So what do? We say he cannot collect the money for the loan because maybe the person paid it back already. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain all of this. Again, these are documents that are issued from a court. That's why they can be returned. If you found a get that was written in a city, right, in a certain city, we need to suspect that maybe there's another city with the same name of the husband and the wife, and therefore we don't return it. But wait a minute, we just said that you return all court documents, and a divorce document is a court document. So we say, no, you return all monetary documents. But when we're talking about a relationship document, like a get, so that we say, no, you can't return. We talked about 3 documents bundled or tied together. Again, the Gemara is saying, is this bundling up or the knot, is this a sign, a siman? We're going to talk more about this in a minute. That you can now say, oh, those are my documents because I rolled them back to front or front to back, right? Is that considered a valid sign that I can now retrieve these documents, or not necessarily? Maybe they were all tied together. And the siman, the sign, is how they were rolled or the number of documents that were there. We do not suspect that maybe the scribe lost it. Again, we're assuming either the lender lost it or the borrower. Now, even though the receipt should be by the borrower, remember we said the receipt goes to the borrower. If it's found by the lender, we said you can't use it to collect money. But we say, wait, maybe he went to the scribe and asked him to write this receipt so that when he gets paid, he'll have a receipt ready to go. We say, no, we're still concerned. Or we say, no, maybe it was found amongst other like ripped documents. Basically, you found it in the garbage. If you find it in the garbage, we assume that the loan was paid, and therefore you cannot use it to collect more money. And again, let's say there are 2 people with the same name. If you find a receipt, so then we assume that both of their loans were paid up. Okay, and now again, if the third party has the receipt, we trust him to say that the borrower paid the lender back. Okay, with that, we finish the first chapter of Bava Metzia, and now we're going to do one more daf of the next chapter. Okay, this chapter is going to talk about, this is actually a very famous chapter. It starts with the words Elu Metziot, or Metzias. This is a very famous chapter. A lot of young kids start learning Gemara with this chapter of found items. So it's very important for us to realize that there is a mitzvah in the Torah that says that if you find an object on the floor, you must return it to its owner, right? This is called Hashavat Aveda. You need to return lost items to their owners. Now, our Gemara is going to discuss what needs to be returned, how do you return it, can I keep it? So the Gemara says, well, we're going to learn it in the Mishnah, and then the Gemara says that the claimant needs to prove that this object is theirs, right? I can't say, oh, that coat, oh yeah, that's mine. Yeah, that's mine. Oh, how is it yours? I don't know, it's really pretty. No, 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 right? You have to give what's called simanim. You have to give good signs that show that this is yours, right? There's a tear in the right pocket, and that's how you know it's mine, or it's missing a gold button on the sleeve. Or there could be witnesses that know, oh yeah, she wears that coat all the time, that's her coat. So there needs to be either witnesses or simanim, identifying markers, and we're going to discuss what those identifying markers are. Another thing is the concept of yeush. We have seen this before. This is the concept of despair or giving up hope. If the owner, right, if the owner never gave up hope, right, they put up signs, right, I lost my coat, I lost my coat, I lost my coat. So that means they didn't give up. There's no yeush. Then, if I find the coat, I must return it. However, if there was yeush, right, if the person was like, oh my God, I went to right Yankee Stadium and I lost my coat, there's no way I'm getting my coat back. Now, if you find the coat in Yankee Stadium, you can keep it. Of course, the Gemara is going to discuss, how do I know if there was yeush or there wasn't, right? How do I know? Okay, that was our introduction. The Mishnah tells us, right? Elu mitziot. If you find something, you can keep it under certain circumstances. What are those circumstances? Let's say you find fruit like scattered on the floor, or money scattered on the floor, or standard food, meaning like nothing with, again, no identifying markers, or unprocessed wool. All of these things don't have a siman, right? I can't say I lost my orange. Oh, describe it. Well, it was orange and it was round. What does that mean, right? It all looks the same. I can't prove that it was my orange. Therefore, I'm assuming that you gave up hope, so I can keep the orange. We'll discuss more details. However, if there's something different about it, right? So it was an orange, but I remember that there was a green spot in the middle. So now I can't keep it because there's a marker on it that the person can identify it and says that they want it back. Okay, so now the Gemara explains, right? Let's say, right, my oranges all fell on the floor. So you should be able to keep it because, again, I can't prove that it was mine. But let's say I put my orange down on the floor because I wanted to go pick something up. I left something in the store. So if I put it down, so then I'm assuming it'll be there when I come back. There's no yeush. I didn't give up hope. Therefore, you can't keep it. So the question is, how do I know if you put it down or if it fell? So they say, no, this is the case. We're at the threshing floor, right? So there's all these things on the floor. And if there's a certain amount of grain in a certain area, so it's a kav of grain in 4 amot. So if it's not a lot, we say that person is probably not coming back to get it, right? If you find a penny on the floor, no one is searching for that penny, you can keep it, right? So if it's a little bit, I'm assuming the person is not coming back to get it, and you can keep it. But if it's a lot of things, so then I'm assuming you're going to come back and try to get it, right? Let's say it's something very expensive, right? If it's something that's very precious, I'm assuming you're coming back and you're not giving up and you're going to be searching for it. Now we're going to get into the topic of, again, in Hebrew, the topic is Yeush Shelo Mida'at. Is there such thing as someone giving up hope if they don't even know that the item was lost? Okay, what does that mean? We know that when you know that it's lost, so you're going to give up hope because you think, oh, there's no way I'm going to find it. But let's say at the moment that I found it, you didn't know that you lost it. So you didn't have Yeush in this moment, But in an hour, when you take out your wallet and you look inside, you're going to realize that you lost the $100 bill, and now you're going to have yeush. So the question is there, right? Can I pick up that $100 if you don't know that you lost it yet? That's the concept. So that is a big machloket. And the question is, again, maybe it depends if this item has identifying markers. Does it have a siman? If it has a siman, we assume you're not gonna have yeush. You're still gonna be looking for it. So therefore, I cannot keep it. And there's no argument that if it, even if it had a siman, but it was, let's say, washed in the river, right? So let's say you're at the beach. This has happened to my children, and they go in a wave, and then the goggles fly off, and you look for it, and you look for it, and you know that you're not finding those goggles. So if I find a pair of goggles on the beach, right, again, I can assume that, obviously, if I see someone standing there and looking for it, I assume that it's his. But if I don't, so you can keep it, because for sure that person was like, there's no way. But again, the Gemara now goes back and forth trying to prove that if we don't know if you had Yeush, can I keep it or not? So again, let's say I find money in a very public place. We assume that you can keep it, because as soon as you realize it's gone, you realize it's gone and you're never getting it back. Right? Or the Gemara brings another case of leket, right? If you remember, leket is when something is left in the field, whatever's left in the field after the farmer leaves, or the workers leave, the poor people can collect the things that were left. So how do I define left, right, or forgotten? So the Gemara says, right, there's a certain point where everybody gives up, and they say, for sure, whoever wanted to come and get this produce, they already left, and at this point, anybody can come and pick up whatever they want from the field. Again, if it's something that is expensive, here's another question that the Gemara asks, and it's interesting to think about, right? So there's a concept that in the Gemara that says a person is always checking his pockets to make sure that his wallet is there, which means that as soon as the wallet falls out of their pocket, within a minute, they're going to realize that it fell out. They're going to give up hope, and you can keep whatever fell out of their pockets. Or no, right? Maybe you're not always aware. So the Gemara says, right, if you're carrying something very expensive, people are always going to check that it's still with them. And therefore, if it fell, again, in a very public place where there's no way you can get it back, we assume that the person had Yeush, and therefore you can keep that item. Okay, that was a lot. As we said in the beginning, this is a jam-packed masechet. So I think we're going to end here. I see we have a few minutes, so I'll stop the recording. And if someone wants to ask a question, b'simcha. But I will take this opportunity to wish everyone first of all, Shabbat Shalom. First of all, an easy fast tomorrow, then a Shabbat Shalom, and then a Purim Sameach. Everyone should have a wonderful Purim, and we should just hear good news from now on. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will pick it up next week at our regular time. Okay.